Hey, Huckster here. Psalm 10 is a prophecy that is quoted in the New Testament. It's probably the most succinct summary of the reign of the Messiah in Scripture. According to this prophecy of David, we see that Christ was going to sit at God's right hand and reign as priest. God was going to stretch forth Christ's scepter so that he would rule in the midst of his enemies. Christ's rule was going to continue until the end of the age, at which time God and Christ came with the saints, and Christ's enemies became a footstool for his feet. Then Christ was to continue to reign forever as priest. Is this prophecy fulfilled? The fact that Christ's rule was going to continue until the end, or the end of the age, at which time God and Christ came with the saints, and Christ's enemies became a footstool for his feet. Now, you have to remember, in Isaiah it says there will be no end to the increase of his government or of peace on the throne of David and over his kingdom, to establish it and to uphold it with justice and righteousness from then on and forever. So putting Isaiah with Psalms, Christ would come with God and with the saints, and Christ's enemies would become his footstools. And I believe that happened in that first century when that holy temple was destroyed. That system ceased to exist. Christ's old covenant enemies, who were subjugated in that first century, became his footstool. Now, I know most people will think it's refers to a judgment at the end of time, when sin will no longer exist on planet Earth, after planet Earth has been bombarded by the stars and the sun and the moon has turned dark, and most of the earth is burned and the majority of the people are killed. But to determine whether or not Christ reigns forever, and whether it will only be fulfilled at an sinned, exterminating end of history, you have to look at what Christ does as a priest forever. He saves sinners. In Hebrews 7:24 and 25. Let's see if I can pull that up. Hebrews 7:24 and 25, but this man, because he continueth forever, hath an unchangeable priesthood, wherever he is able also to save them to the uttermost that come unto God by him, seeing he ever liveth to make intercession for them. For such an high priest became us, who is holy, harmless, undefiled, separate from sinners, and made higher than the heavens. He was to be an intercessor for them, a high priest forever. So, because he abides forever, he holds his priesthood permanently. So, he is able to save forever those who draw near to God through him, since he always lives to make intercession for them. In Revelation, it talks about the tree of life in the midst of the rivers that is for the healing of the nations. If sin is totally eradicated, why do the nations need healing? Christ's priesthood lasts for as long as Christ always lives, for as long as the new covenant continues. In other words, forever. Christ's priesthood is permanent. How long does the Christian age, the age of the priesthood of Christ, continue? Forever. How long then do sinners continue to be born? Forever. The gospel is called the eternal gospel in Revelation 14:6. The ministry of Christ and his church is an eternal ministry in which nations enter into the holy city and receive healing every month, year to year, forever and ever. And those nations that rebel against Christ are outside the city. Revelation 21:27, 22:15, suffering, deprivation, remaining separated from his presence. Zechariah 14:18. Peace.